It is Friday, February the 18th. It is our AMA Friday, and we are ready where we will have Sidney Resources to come in and tell us about how they've got all kinds of things going. So I'll let everybody kind of get in here, kind of get their butt groove in that seat, and get ready to listen. I'll let everybody get in here. While everybody is filing into here, one thing I'll remind you of is in the bottom right-hand corner of your screen, you'll see a little blue button, or it should be blue. Could be a different color for you, but if you do, will you hit that button and tweet out the room? Make sure we get as many people in here as possible. If you're unfamiliar with who we are, I am Steven. I go by the Voice of DeFi. You can find me at Voice of DeFi on Twitter. But today, I'm with TRADERVERSE here because TRADERVERSE is a soon-to-be-released social media network developed exclusively by traders for traders that's completely surrounding trading. So it's a social network that doesn't just have cat videos and whatever else. This is hardcore traders that want to learn from each other. And soon, next month, we'll even have the audio-video streaming platform, which will be one of the first of many features that will be released for the platform. So make sure you give the account that I'm with at TRADERVERSE.io a follow so you can follow along, so you can find out a little more about that. With me today is my co-host, Hawk Holdings. Hawk, how you doing today?
Everything's great, man. Thanks for being here, and thank you to Dan and Sean for jumping on from Sidney Resources. We're excited to hear more about their projects and their outlook.
Man, I am excited as well. So yeah, today we have Sidney Resources here. If you're wanting to look them up, they are ticker symbol SDRC. They're currently on the peak sheets in the OTC market. And they actually have a quite interesting business that I think you'll want to learn about to find out exactly how they're pulling off what they're pulling off. And I always like to hear about businesses that are doing something innovative, but also I like to know about businesses that are a little early, where you can kind of know about it before maybe the masses know about it. So that's one of the things we want to do here in these AMAs here, is let you kind of get to know a business like Sidney Resources. So with me today, I have Dan Hawley and Sean Zelowski. Hope I said that right, and if I didn't, I apologize for butchering it. But how are you two doing today?
I'm doing great. This is Dan Howley. We appreciate the time, and really looking forward to having some fun today. But hope everyone's doing well this morning, and it's going to be a fun time.
And this is Sean, and I'm doing great as well. So I'm excited to be here and share a little bit about the company, and learn more about you guys too.
Excellent. Yeah, we'll certainly learn a lot from each other. Well, before we really just dig down deep into Sidney Resources, if both Dan and Sean can give me just a little bit of a pull back the curtain of maybe your expertise. Where did you kind of come along the way to ultimately end up with Sidney?
Go ahead, Dan. Go first.
Okay. Well, my background originally, I spent about 20 years in law enforcement, executive level law enforcement, homicide, undercover internet crimes, those types of things. But I learned a lot about doing research and development, a lot of leadership experience. And years back when I got asked to get involved with Sidney Resources, I just used those skills. I started researching, understanding mining. The one thing I've learned over the years, I'm never the smartest guy in the room. So I surround myself with the people that were a lot smarter than I am. I sought out the old timers, the old school mining engineers, current mining engineers, people that were really experts in the field, and I learned from them. And now have about 12 years of experience in the mining world under my belt, and that's a lot of it's field experience and a lot of reading and just talking with experts, picking their brains has helped develop my skill sets, and I continue to do that today.
Man, that's interesting. First of all, interesting that you started out in law enforcement. That's quite a path. But then it just sounds like you really like to immerse yourself in research, and you're willing to admit when you don't know everything, and you're willing to look at smart people that do know some things that you can share that knowledge with, or they can share their knowledge with you. So yeah, that's great, and it's certainly a good way for anybody to kind of move up in a company or just expand their knowledge base. How about yourself, Sean? What's your background?
Yeah, so my professional world started in financial services. Didn't know what I wanted to do, so I kind of fell into it. And I had a great time up being number one in my firm of about 100 people at 34 years old. And I really didn't want to play the role of a problem solver whose goal was to sell a product at the end of the day. I mean, some people might disagree with that's what financial advisors do, but I felt like most of the job was eventually trying to sell a product. And I really just wanted to focus on solving problems for companies, as I was assisting companies with mergers and acquisitions and exits, and business succession is where I focus in my estate planning. So I just wanted to do that in a better way, where I could not have the oversight of a broker dealer telling me what I could and couldn't do or couldn't charge for. So took some time away, ended up co-founding an investment group with a good friend of mine who does an amazing job, and really brought me up to speed in what the real investment world is behind the scenes of what you see in the marketplace and ETFs and funds and stocks and things like that. So was able to see what some of the largest family offices do from a ground level perspective, and then see what some of the largest families in the country as well are engaged in to help manipulate the outcome of their investment in a legal manner. So they're saying, we have this company over here that does this, so we're going to buy this company that does it really well, so we're paying ourselves at the end of the day. So I was able to see how that environment works and really benefit from that education. But I do like problem solving and focusing on the problem solve in addition to the capital raising, that things that go with it. So my colleague didn't want to register as RIA, so we went in separate paths. So now I assist some RIAs and investment banks across the United States as an advisor to their committees to see what they should pick and what they shouldn't. And I fell into this mining project very happenstance. I've been participated in hundreds of millions of dollars of raises with various other companies. And a neighbor of mine came to me and said, would I be interested in looking at this? And I thought, it looks interesting. I'll take a glance. Bought some on the OTC at the party I was at on my phone, and then watched it for a little while. And then I asked him if he needed a little bit of help, just because I met the president in time, and ended up fulfilling half the raise for the company, and then in time joining the board and some other things like that, and then became the director of the company just because I really like where the company is going. So it's a very brief overview of a pretty complicated past, but that's where it is.
It's amazing how the different paths can kind of lead to something like a company like Sidney, to where you're using each of your skills that you've learned in other industries, not necessarily, especially with you, Sean, not necessarily other industries, but the skills that you've learned along the way to be able to now apply them to Sidney Resources. So Sidney Resources is a mining and exploration company. And I think they really do some neat things, particularly with their proprietary laser technology. Now, I'll let whichever one of you wants to answer this quickly, because not everybody in the room may be familiar with Sidney Resources. But really quick, give me just the quick elevator pitch type of rundown of what is Sidney Resources, and kind of tell me, why is it unique in the marketplace?
Well, Sidney, what we do is we're an exploration development company, but we also have another division where we are developing cutting edge mining technology. We're unique because we've sought out what we believe are high value gold and silver properties in rural, remote areas that were previous large producers that were ultimately shut down by the government back in the day. And then we've moved into what is incredibly exciting is the technology development. I mean, we believe this will change the face of mining, as well as an incredible number of other uses. So that's what we are. It's unique. We're a company that has been around for a really long time, but I think an important component of what we do is we listen and we're transparent. We just do things slow and methodical. Sometimes people may get frustrated, but we're committed to doing it the right way. And being a mining company, one of the most important things to us as a board is the environment. And we know mining is going to have to occur. We know from a national security standpoint, we know from an economic standpoint to support the technologies. We know all of these things. So we want to develop ways to do this in a cleaner, better process that improves safety in all aspects across the mining world. And being small and an upcoming company, I think makes us unique in the world, or the swimming we're swimming in right now. And we have a lot of fun doing it. But I think we've just amassed an incredible team, and having people like Sean on board and our team of engineers doing the research and development really makes us unique.
Well, I'm glad you mentioned that with the environment, because I think a lot of people are concerned about it, especially with mining operations, that somehow it's going to harm the environment. And investors may be concerned about that because they may say, okay, if enough pushback comes or regulation comes, this could actually affect the stock price. So for you guys, it sounds like that's kind of at the front of your mind. At the same time, you mentioned that the resources that you're mining for are needed economically, at a macro level. So what you do is a necessary business, but you want to do it in the right way. You want to do it in a way that is, not detrimental to the environment. Is that one of the first things whenever you see a site, and we'll get into the Lucky Ben project here in just a moment because I want to cover that. But whenever you see a site that you're looking into, what are some of the questions that you ask, and to see whether it would be a good place to kind of do business there?
So on a broader range, that was one of the first questions I asked as an investor coming into the company to Dan, because growing up in the Midwest, we have I'm right on the Great Lakes, so what's been an important aspect of how I see the world, and I think it should be an important aspect to the global understanding of resources. So it was my first question to Dan was like, how are we handling whatever pollutants may be being developed here in this mine? And he said it very clearly that there's an oxidation process in place to clean that up, and that there's other opportunities around the area to do that. So I thought that was incredible that he was on top of it. First answer, no hesitation, and that really allayed any fears I had. And then I'll let Dan continue. We'll come back to that.
Yeah. So what I do when I look at a property, and I've spent 12 years now researching the Warren District and some surrounding areas, but I look at what's the past potential, what was removed, what potential is left behind. But I also, and an important part of what I look at is how can we improve the site? How can we make it better? Because, most of the Warren District was mined from about 1865 to 1935. And so when you think about the technologies that were used, not to mention an incredible amount of dredging that was done, but there's a lot of groundwater. There's a lot of groundwater that seeps into some highly environmentally sensitive waterways, one being the Salmon River. So I look at how can we approach this in a way, is there potential from an economic gain, but just as importantly, is there is potential to clean up a site? And that's really what I evaluate when I'm looking at some property. And I've identified countless properties in that area that could definitely benefit from cleanup, as well as provide economically, particularly in rural jobs. So there's just a whole host of items that I look at, but it's how do we be a positive impact on the environment, the community, and the economy, while taking tremendous care with our shareholders and our investors.
I see. That's a great answer, and it tells me that it's one of the things that you think about of, will this work out economically for us, and also we'll be able to help out the local economy, we'll be able to clean it up. That sounds great, and it sounds like you're really trying to get kind of all your ducks in a row before you pick a site. Now, one of the things that you are looking at to try to, for us to understand Sidney Resources and their current exploration projects a little better, is this Lucky Ben project. And I want to get a little further insight to that, and also the proprietary laser technology that can go with what you do. Tell us a little bit about how you got started on the Lucky Ben project, what it is, and where you're at today with it, and why you see that particular location as being special.
Okay, well, when I was first approached about getting involved in Sidney Resources, at that time I was working for the Forest Service in law enforcement and fire. So I was familiar with the Forest Service, and I was actually on the Payette National Forest where the Lucky Ben is located. And I had met the president at that time of Sidney Resources through some permitting and helped him out with some different things. And then when he was incapacitated due to an accident, not on site, I'll just make that clear. But I was approached by the attorneys that were essentially running Sidney to keep it afloat. And when I took a look at the company, there was no money. There was no stock trading. They were behind significantly in reporting to OTC. No real support systems. And I thought, wow, what an opportunity, because I looked at the Lucky Ben site. I did a lot of research. I did a lot of investigation into the Warren area itself. And I also took into account, once I read the history on Sidney Resources, is there was over 1,900 investors early on in the company, and most of those were mom and pop investors. And the attorneys that spoke with me pointed out that they felt I was about the only chance to keep things moving forward. Not to mention the lease had expired on the Lucky Ben. So, there were a few. I thought, okay, but I love a challenge. And once I heard the story of some of the investors of what they had put in to keep things moving, I thought, why not? And I wanted a vested shareholder to be involved as well. And so the attorneys reached out to Greg Lindner, whose family was an early investor, and we decided, we're going to do this. We're going to make this work. We created a plan. We've stuck to that plan. So we've moved from stock that had a value of about 0.00061 cents per share with no trading activity to where we're at today. So it's been a process, but we've never wavered from our core plan to doing things the right way, and surrounding ourselves with fantastic people. It's definitely been a team effort.
That's great that you also want to recognize that, that it is a team effort, because sure, no business has done, like you said, from 0.0006 to where you are now without everybody and all hands on deck. Well, it has come out that you guys have really improved at some record-breaking financials. Your assets have doubled in the last 6 months, and you've received record funding. What are you going to do with that funding? How is that going to be best utilized for the growth of Sidney?
Well, we essentially run on two houses, and the one thing before we jump into that, if you don't mind, I would like to have Sean kind of share how he got involved.
Please do, Sean.
Sure. So when I look at an investment, I've had the opportunity to work with some really incredible disruptive companies, and on that technology basis, when I evaluate an investment, I need to see that it's going to be both disruptive and transformative. I don't want to invest in something that's going to give me an 8% return or 12% return, because if I'm going to be a partner and put my time into it, it has to be worth it. So when I started to evaluate this, and I really saw the technology, that's what really made me excited. I think the incredible reserves of the Lucky Ben are one side of the equation, but the multiples in a technology field are far greater than production. So not only did I see the arbitrage and the instant value and all the things that it was gold, it was incredible, but now parlay that into the technology side of it as well. We go from where we grew to where we can go, and I think we have multiples of growth from where we are. I don't want to speculate or give anything away, but I just think that if we can take this technology, and what I believe it will do, it not only exist in the mining capacity or in mining sphere, but it has the ability to disrupt rescue and safety operations, construction, and some defense and military applications as well. So if you look at the broad range of what the company can become, that's what I get really excited about as a director. Of course, there's things to do in the background and make sure everything's clean, and coming from a different perspective, I can make sure that we're looking at the problem a little bit differently. We've grown tremendously because of that as well, but I'm just excited to see what this be because of what's already here. So I mean, based on just the values in our current site without acquisitions, we have multiples to go, and once we start getting that gold out, it's going to be a wonderful experience for everybody, I believe.
Yeah, sorry to interrupt. I
Yeah.
touched on the technology there a little bit. Which is, you're right, that's one of, if you're looking over Sidney Resources and you realize the technology that's behind it, that's one of the things that really stands out. It sounds like it stood out to you, and it stands out to me and probably anyone else that looks over Sidney Resources. Can you discuss that technology a little bit about what it is that really just floored you and thought, oh my gosh, this is a lot different. This could actually, like you said, affect multiple industries.
Yeah, so I flew out to Idaho to meet with the team, and I met with Gary, and he's a brilliant sage. He's been in the industry for 40 some years, and just with Raytheon before that. And we've continued to work with Raytheon with his technology as we develop it. And it's just, if you see the difference of the amount of time it takes when you're, I knew nothing, relatively nothing about mining before coming into this, but walking the site and seeing, how much stabilization has to occur in mining, how many independent drillings take place, and how much time that takes in the resources. Now, if we can cut that down by even 40%, the efficiency in mining everywhere. Now, that's a technology that everybody can use globally. That's a wow moment for me. Looking at that, wow, we can do that. Now you take that same technology and you can have a more narrow corridor, and you don't have to remove as much wasted rock or tonnage. It's even more efficient. So these layered efficiencies of not just stabilization, but also following specifically the best route for deep vein mining or cobalt or lithium or whatever it might be. The aspects become incredible. Now, if you look at all the other aspects that involve cutting and drilling, that's all over the world, especially the infrastructure bill that's coming and all the other things. That's where I get really excited. There's so many ways to utilize this technology in a way that'll make everything more efficient. And if we can do things better, we can make, in my opinion, we make America a stronger country on a global scale, and that's even better. Because I like to give back, and I want us to be the best that we can be in a global competition.
Now you have, you just mentioned you have this technology where you can, like you said, make it more narrow for whenever you're mining and not have to drill as big of a hole. You have 3 patented claims. Is that one of the patented claims that you have?
Go ahead, Dan.
Yeah, the patented claims that we lease, the Lucky Bend is one of the patented claims. So that's, and for those that don't understand mining claims, a patented claim is essentially now private property. So that's where we work at. And ultimately, the Lucky Bend is an ideal location because of conditions, rock types, history. Ultimately, that's where we'll be doing field testing once the unit is complete. The first prototype is complete. That's where we'll do the field testing. Initially, as we're about a year ahead of schedule from where I thought we would be. So as we move forward with Raytheon on construction of the initial prototype, which I have to be very careful because of patents and different things they're working on. So I don't well, I guess I do mean to be vague, but just because I have to. But I anticipate we'll be testing the initial system in the labs in this year, in the very near future, and there's potential for field testing at the Lucky Bend. So the 2 projects marry incredibly well, and ultimately our plan is to use this technology on the Lucky Bend as well as the other locations that have in the Warren District.
So I'm glad you said that. You gave a little bit of a timeline, which is one of the things I wanted to ask. Is you said a lot of the testing that you're wanting to do that you feel confident will happen in 2022, this year, correct?
That's correct.
Okay, and that I think as an investor, people are looking into, okay, what's the time frame? Is this something that's happening years from now, or is this something that's happening more in the immediate future? So it's good that it looks like things are going well as far as testing. Now, with the testing, I guess you don't know what the results of that testing will be, and whenever you finally do see that, okay, like at the Lucky Bend site, you're full steam ahead. What is the time? Once everything's kind of a green light, what's the timetable of where you can start to actually mine there?
Well, mining at the Lucky Bend is just for those, if you don't really understand mining, the average, to bring a mine from, you essentially decide, here's where I want to mine, to production mining is anywhere on average, probably 15 to 20 years to develop a site. So you figure I've been involved in this for 12 years now. So really we're on schedule. A lot of what we did last year, a lot of people were super excited, and they should have been, because we were doing core drilling. What a lot of people, I don't think, really understood is the purpose of the core drilling wasn't necessarily to determine values, but we were determining if the vein, the downward dip of the vein, continued. And that's what all of our results showed, which for us was incredibly exciting. And then one of the um, you know, pieces, the bowl of gravy, I guess I'll say, that came with that is we had good gold and silver results. The average was 8 grams per ton. And, that may not sound like a lot, but from the World Gold Council, that's considered high grade. And so we're super excited. But what we know about the Lucky Ben is we know its history. We know that what came out of there. And when you look at, in continuing research, back in, 1868, when J. Cizik, when they were working the Lucky Ben, when they had results, they were producing gold that was running at 80 to 290 ounces per ton for a return per ton, or dollars, not ounces. And gold at that time was $15.59. So when you think about that, that converts between 5 and 18 ounces per ton is what they were recovering based on the records. And these records are in reports to the state. They're in newspaper articles from that time. So at 5 ounces per ton, that equates to about 191 grams. At 18 ounces per ton, that converts to 510 grams. So we know that they recovered that, but they were only at the first level. They didn't go downward. So now we know that they were working this in the first level, and now we know, because of the work we did last year, that vein structure continues downward. So this year, what we're going to be doing, what the plans are so far, is we're going to continue to explore the old tunnel, because we want to map everywhere that they mined, because the Warren District is what's called narrow vein structures. And narrow vein structures are pockets of gold. They don't run continuous. You have traces of gold and silver between the pockets, but everything's pocketed. That's why it's harder to develop. So we'll continue to explore along the old tunnel to find out exactly where they mine, because that tells us where the pockets are. So we're going to punch in a new tunnel at a lower elevation, and we're going to actually drift on the vein. And for mining phrases, drift just means we're going to tunnel. We're going to dig on the vein. So that's going to allow us to do some incredible sample work in bulk samples. And because what we're ultimately after is proving what reserves are there, so that we can prove it's economically feasible to move forward with initially would be a temporary portable mill. So this year is going to be an exciting time. We'll, at a minimum, be stockpiling what we call development rock or development ore that will have some pretty strong known values. And then the next step is that enough information to decide to flip the switch and move from exploration to mining? So a lot of it is just waiting for enough data to say, yep, this is a go. Because you want to know, yep, this is a go, so that you're being responsible with investor dollars and not just spending a bunch of money.
Yeah, that is fascinating. I don't know a whole lot about the mining industry, and actually, just sitting here talking with you, I feel like I'm learning quite a bit just from it. I had no clue that it took 15 to 20 years from looking at the site to going through the process. So that was very interesting for sure. Does it ever occur? And maybe this hasn't happened where you have, but maybe it has. That's why I ask. Have ever you looked at a site and you've done some initial testing and it ends up like this is a waste of money. If we continue to do this, we need to move on and put our resources in another place. Has that occurred?
That has not occurred for us, but it occurs frequently with companies that try and develop properties. There may be some initial indicators that, wow, this could be great, but then the veins don't carry. You can have a pocket, and narrow veins are some of the most difficult to develop, because if you think about a normal vein structure, it runs at length, and the gold runs all the way through the vein. In a narrow vein, it's in pockets. And so when traditional methods for exploration would be primarily core drilling, diamond core drilling. Well, you can know where the vein is, but you may do some core drilling and it show nothing. Well, if you'd have moved 6 inches over, you'd have hit the mother lode. So it's called the Nugget Effect. And because we've listened to the old timers and the experts that know narrow vein structures, we're doing our due diligence to prove what's there before we make the leap. And every single indicator we have seen, from surface indicators to trenching to core drilling to history, is we need to stay there and we need to continue to do the development work. There has not been a single piece of data that has made us question, are we at the right place?
Wow. So help me understand the proprietary laser technology and try to explain it like I'm 5, because I don't have a whole lot of knowledge in mining, and many investors might not either. Some people, just strictly technical traders, maybe just looking at a chart. But to understand it a little bit better, your proprietary laser technology, is it helping you identify sites? Is it helping you know where to drill? Not even like on a map, but like once you even have the site of where, on a micro level, where to actually drill. How is the laser technology helping you to improve what's already being done?
Well, the laser technology at this point isn't a factor in identifying gold processes or how we're going to find gold and stuff like that. It hasn't advanced far enough to be used for that type of work. What is kind of a reverse is the work that we've done, and the engineers, the mining engineers and our mining teams and our geologists and those people, they have helped the engineers with the mining technology understand how we can improve it. But when we're underground, and I spent the entire summer underground this year, so I have a better grasp of how to use the technology and we made a lot of modifications. So the two working together improve both elements of what we're doing. Because now when we're underground, what we may have said, man, I don't think we can do this. We look at, no, we can do this once the technology's ready. So the technology and what we believe its capabilities will be have really helped shape our attitudes of, we can move this forward. We know we can do it with traditional mining methods, but what builds the excitement is what we'll be able to do once the new technology is ready for the field. They both really marry well. And we've used both teams to really fine tune what we're doing on the tech side, because the tech side is just amazing. And when you look at the backgrounds of Gary and Gabe, it's phenomenal what they've done in their careers. And now they're learning about mining. So we're having a lot of fun with it.
For sure. Yeah. Here's what I like is it sounds like, you guys, almost like an investor, kind of betting on this technology to say, like, this technology looks like it could be, industry changing. And, that there's the older way of mining that is there if you need to, but it sounds like, as the advancement happens with this technology and it gets better and better and better, that that whenever it's ready to go and ready for the field, that you'll be able to do some pretty good work and be able to get a lot of resources that maybe previously wouldn't have been able to be obtained quite as easily. So you've got quite a good plan. You've got, from hearing you talk about the different sites, the different potential that you have with this new technology, that it can definitely be good for an investor. And you've definitely had a lot of investors want to put, their finances into, where your assets have doubled in the last 6 months. That's pretty good. You received that record funding. Are with that funding, are you going to look for more sites, or is it going more into, research to get the tech, going and where you can start mining with this new tech?
Sean, do you want to touch on that, or do you want me to?
Sure, I can do both. So I think we're using today's funding and what we're funding today is for our current site production and technology development. So those two tranches is what we're focused on. With the family offices and investment banks, it's investors that I work with, we are evaluating what acquisitions may make sense in the future, but those would be part of future raises at this point. So
I see.
any current funding would be for what we have going on and that development. So I think that's where we're focused today with the dollars that we have individuals have trusted us with at the end of the day.
Yeah, yeah, okay, that makes sense. And where do you consider, Sydney Resources right now in terms of just financial strength, all in all? Do you feel like everything is fairly solid for where you stand right now to this very day?
Yeah, I do. As an investor in the company before I joined the board and became the director, I'm very comfortable with it. I also know that we have other relationships that are interested in participating in future raises and evaluating coming into the company to facilitate growth in the areas that we are gaining ground in. So I also work with a few funds that facilitate listing companies or growing. And one of those happens to be affiliated with a New Zealand mining company that's shown some interest. So they've done some early evaluations just on what we are and what we need to do to be more compelling as an acquisition target and things like that. So one of the areas I always look at when I go into a company is how do I get out? I mean, you have to start with the end in mind a little bit because well, I appreciate the legacy of the company. As an investor, my goal is not to be with the company for 50 years as an investor. My goal with the company, unless it just keeps going gangbusters and has huge dividends, and of course, we evaluate that as it is. But I want to know how do we grow the company to a level where we can have a win for the investors? Because when investors trust us with the assets they've worked hard for however long it took to gain those assets, we have to be good stewards of that asset. And part of that asset is to achieve an exit event or move up from pink sheets to a regularly traded marketplace so they can have more liquidity, we can have a better experience. And I really see the stock doing incredibly well over time. So I'm not in a rush to leave, but I also do want to have those opportunities where we can have synergistic movements. We can become part of a larger group so we can grow faster, or we can be a subsidiary of somebody else who's doing a great job. Those are all real possibilities and areas that I continue to focus on and have those conversations on a weekly basis of what do we need to do to be a good partner with XYZ company or XYZ mining firm. And as we also look at, what do we do to grow internally and organically, independent of those other opportunities? So we evaluate those on a daily basis.
Excellent, excellent. Well, it sounds like financial strength is something that you would know well, and I didn't even think about this as you kind of told your story, is, you started out as an investor. So of course
Yeah.
it's easy for you to put yourself in the shoes of the investor because that's how you began. So easy for you to kind of put yourself there. Getting back to the Lucky Ben project, as I was doing a little bit of research here, I can see that you have to have an access road to be able to get to the site. You have to improve or even, replace that access road. Are things like that, are they hindrances to a project, or is there something that it's just a cost of doing business and it's just necessary to be able to do a project correctly?
Well, the road in particular, one of the big important factors for the new road is to really protect the environment. The old road, the road that we currently use, we take tremendous care in ensuring silt and water crossings and as little impact as we can as we use that road. But that road is prone or can be prone to erosion, which then it feeds into the water systems. Plus, it's a tough road on equipment. The grades are steep. It's narrow. It was a road that was punched in probably around 1905. So both from an environmental and a practical use standpoint, a new road's important. We could do everything with the existing road, but we don't want to. It's not the best way to work in the area, and things are going incredibly well with the Forest Service. We submitted our application for a new road last year, and it's moved forward we just received word it was accepted. So it's moved forward into the environmental study aspect. They'll do a biological study on the streams. They'll do a wildlife study. And one of the things that was really fun last year on the wildlife side is we had an intern from Washington State University. She did work as part of her requirements at WSU. She was down, doing wildlife research. So we look at those opportunities. But the road project's moving forward, and the plan with the Forest Service is that road will be deeded access, which from a long-term standpoint is fantastic, not only for us as a company, but for our investors.
Well, this gets into a little bit of what you said before of you like to make the sites that you're at to be able to help them out environmentally, and even, the local economy. So it sounds like, that's kind of your answer kind of rings true with what you said earlier of how you want to even improve and leave it better than whenever you found it at the same time, being able to extract the resources that are of value inside. And, that way it's good for investors, yet good for the local economy as well. So it sounds like you're kind of ringing true to that kind of thought. Now, you've got a couple of other, we're got about the last 15 minutes here, so I want to make sure there's a few things that I ask about. But I see you have some working plans to have groundhog mining and a milling company to place a temporary processing plant at that location. Will that be advantageous to you to have that, for Sidney Resources to have that there? Or is this something that may or may not happen?
Well, it would be incredibly advantageous for us to have a portable temporary mill on site, particularly as we do further testing, ultimately production, to be able to do that on site. But again, it's from an environmental impact statement, you make less of an impact on the environment if we're not hauling long distances across roads and different things like that. So there's some benefits there. Groundhog Mining owns a portable temporary mill, and we're in the process of permitting that mill. So we're in process of that work moving forward. So as things progress, I would say there's a high likelihood that ultimately we will have a portable temporary processing facility on site, not only for continued discovery work, but ultimate production. But a lot of what we do right now is, from an environmental standpoint, how do we do it with the least impact on the environment? And that's what we're in the process of figuring out.
Great. And, just from me, I'm just an idiot behind a microphone, figuring out that process sounds really involved. And you probably, it's kind of like you said before of you want to surround yourself with smart people, and you guys do have smart people on board. And speaking of smart people, I want to be able to kind of ask about your engineers and your thermal fracturing process that you have. You got a couple of engineers, Gary and Gabe. First of all, how did they come to join Sidney? And after that, kind of a part B to that question is kind of what's their role in the thermal fracturing process? How are they involved?
Well, Gary and Gabe both, the original patents for this unit were filed and were held by a company called Merger Mines. Gary and Gabe were under Merger Mines. Gary as an employee, Gabe as a contractor, because he has his own engineering company. And they were with Merger because Merger believed that they could pull together the funding to move the project into development. They didn't make that happen. I had tried, because I knew about the project. Some of the old school engineers had told me about the project, so I learned a lot about it, and I was super excited about it. I could see the potential. So we worked with Merger Mines. We acquired the patents. Both Gabe and Gary were super excited to come to work with us. And they're up at the Coeur d'Alene office working today. But when I read about Gary, Gary was on the team that developed the Titan III rocket engines. He developed the early FLIR units that were used on the Huey helicopters. He developed the systems for the SM-3 missiles. He developed the fire control systems for the Apache helicopters. Just to name a few things that this guy has done, it's phenomenal what he's been involved with. He's been a lead for Raytheon. He's been a lead for Northrop. He's worked on national projects of incredible importance to national security. The man is absolutely brilliant.
I love what, I've been in a few situations where you're working with a company and all of a sudden you realize you have a chance to get an elite talent, an absolute elite talent that will absolutely be able to help out the company. I sense it in your voice. That's kind of how you feel here, where you're thinking like, wow, what an asset for us to be able to have if you look at his past work. And so, yeah, congrats on having both Gary and Gabe kind of be a part of Sydney. And I understand why they were excited. They've been working on something and they want to continue to see it come to, what the vision is for it. So this technology, this thermal fracturing process, you have applied for a patent for it, correct? And if so, what's the status of that application?
We have a patent right now on a component of the thermal fracturing, so that's in place now. What we've done when we brought in our mining engineers, our mining experts to meet with Gary and Gabe, because Gabe's just as incredible as Gary. I mean, he's worked on so many projects, everything from the gyro systems to flying cars that are in development. It's just incredible what he's done to both of them. In fact, I had a shareholder there that came by the office yesterday, and he met with both Gary and Gabe, and he says, "Boy, do I feel like a dumb guy." And, they're just amazing. But what we're working on now, because we brought these two teams together, which never really happened under merger mines. They had these tech guys that are brilliant with no mining experience developing mining technology. So we brought in the missing piece of the puzzle. And so now through their vision, they've developed concepts that we're moving forward with Raytheon now for manufacturing that I can't get into the specifics, but there will be other components beyond just the rock spalling concept of the original, what they referred to as a laser miner. So it's really expanded. And because of the vision of this team and everybody involved, including people like Sean and Greg and Sue, and, we can see where this can make a global impact. And that's what's so exciting.
For sure. Yeah. And well, global impact without a doubt. You're in an industry here that has, you're getting resources that obviously the whole global economy kind of relies on. There's definitely a lot of impact that you could have in the future. So in the future, just speaking of, we've talked about a few of your sites. We've talked about the Lucky Ben project, but are you looking for future exploration projects already so that whenever you finally do get the tech where it needs to be, that boom, you'll already have some sites that are ready for testing and you can kind of, I don't want to say fast track them, as we talked, it can take a while, but are you already looking for other sites to work with?
I'm not only currently looking, but I have a long list of sites that will be ideal, are known past producers, and are really overlooked by the big boys, so to speak, because of where they're at.
Why do you think, okay, you say overlooked by the big boys. Why do you think that happens? Do they just think it's dried up and there's not any more to mine, or why do you think the big boys would just pass on something like that?
Well, a lot of it has to do with the exploration types and the way they look at exploration. Their focus on exploration really is the traditional way of doing diamond drilling. Diamond drilling does not work as a single source of exploration on narrow vein structures because of the Nugget Effect that I talked about earlier. There have been a lot of mining companies that came into Warren and did exploration programs, spent millions on exploration programs using diamond drilling. And because they didn't hit pockets, they thought there's nothing there. And then somebody else came in and drilled and hit a pocket and thought, wow. But then they spent all their money building the mill before they did any development work. So they ran out of money. They're in remote, tough locations. I spent all summer living in Warren, Idaho. And for those of you, if you want an incredible place to visit, that's got a restaurant with some of the best food anywhere, which is called the Bomb Shelter, BAUM Shelter. It's tough to be there, but we've got the people that are willing to be there because they see the potential. And a big focus of what we're looking at too is the rural economic development for those areas, which really isn't what a lot of the big companies are after. They're after nothing but profit. We want to be profitable, no doubt about it, but we want to make a positive impact on the environment, the community. We want to do jobs for veterans. There's so many things that we want to do to be a positive impact, which really isn't the focus frequently with the big companies. They focus more on areas that it's easier for them to get employees to go to work at.
Yeah, I'm glad you said it like that, because it's been a theme almost through our entire time talking here of you saying how important it is that environmentally it's an okay place, how important it is that economically it's better to that local area, and now you're even mentioning getting jobs for veterans and things like that. I really like that you think like that, as opposed to big boys, like you said, that not only may overlook some certain areas, but you're actually looking to these overlooked areas to improve them, which I think is admirable that you're doing as a company. And at the same time, like you said, it's not that profit isn't important here. It is important. Investors, it sounds like you've been clear about that. But at the same time, you don't want to just be a virus either and just go into an area, take all of its resources, and then leave it much worse than you found it. That sounds like that's not really what you're doing at all. So we've had quite a little bit of a conversation here and learning quite a bit about Sidney Resources. Where's the best place to keep up with what's going on with Sidney Resources? Is it your Twitter account, your social media, or someplace else?
Well, we're definitely getting better with social media. I've got Twitter figured out now. I'm in the process right now of working on developing our website so that it's a better source of information for folks. And just a lot of what I want to help investors do is understand mining and technology in a way that's easy to understand. And so that's what I'm looking at doing, because I've had to learn it. And we want people to be easy to see what we do. Of course, we do all of our reporting on OTC markets, and that's a good way to do, to learn about where we've been and where we're headed. But I would say Twitter, and taking a look at our website now and then, because it's definitely going to improve. I blame the web designer for the way it looks now, which happened to be me. So it's time to bring in the experts that can make it look a lot more efficient for our investors.
I understand. And yeah, you've got Twitter figured out. You're on Twitter Spaces. So that to me that's like high level Twitter is being on Twitter Spaces, because anybody can, throw out a message and send it out there. But sometimes people have trouble understanding Twitter Spaces. But as far as education, you do fairly well with it. And I can tell you're cognizant of that as you're speaking. You're like, okay, I just used this term. Let me kind of define this, because in mining, this means this. And, it's helpful for me just to interview you, but I'm sure it's helpful to the listener also, because I feel like you're always cognizant that maybe everybody isn't familiar with mining terminology. They still may be interested in investing, but to do research properly, you kind of have to know a little bit about the industry which you're investing in. And you're doing a fairly good job of helping somebody like me that is not involved. I'm probably more involved in mining cryptocurrency than I am, understanding mining, gold. And you've done a very good job of helping me understand that a little bit better, which I didn't know that quite as much. So everybody, make sure you do. You can see you can see Dan speaking here from the Sidney Resources Corporation Twitter account. Make sure you give it a follow. That way you can see what's going on with it. You can also check out the website. As he said, it'll be giving a little fresh coat of paint at sometimes. And he said, if you want to blame anybody, blame that old web designer, which was which was him. But they're going to get that with a fresh coat of paint on it as well. But it has been fantastic speaking with you, both Dan and Sean. I've really enjoyed kind of learning about the resources, learning about the process of mining, and kind of learning about what you guys are doing to not only be as profitable as possible, but also be as good for the areas as possible that you're mining in. So I really appreciate you guys coming in here and just hitting us with as much knowledge as you possibly could in this short amount of time.
Well, I appreciate you having us. And, I have to say how excited I am to have Sean on board, particularly because Sean and I have the same passion for the environment. And he has just been an incredible shot in the arm for me and for the company. So I'm so glad he could join us today, and that all of you got a chance to hear Sean, because he is just Yeah, I can't find the words to describe the value he has brought to the company.
Number one in his firm at 34 years old. That was pretty impressive, Sean. Yeah, I'm sure they are glad to have you, and I'm glad to have you here answering a few of our questions.
Yeah, it's been my pleasure to both be here and with the company. Also, I wanted to just highlight that Dan and I are also putting together a foundation to help with clean water in Idaho and the surrounding areas, and we'll look to make that global eventually. Of course, it's going to take time, but Dan's been putting in an incredible amount of work as well to make sure that we're not utilizing Sidney Resources for social projects. So we're going to create a parallel foundation that does that clean water work, and he's been working with the Associated Political Office and the Forestry and Agriculture to do it in a way that they want to see to best attract those grants. And apologies for my dog. Sorry about that. That's my massive and Great Dane, everybody. So anyway, but it's been great to do that, and I just wanted to highlight how hard he's worked in the background, not only for the company, but to make sure that we're being as responsible as possible with some of the things that we want to feel good about and do a great job for the environment. Because we understand that global view on clean water isn't the responsibility of Sidney and its shareholders. That's our passion. So we're pursuing that funding as a separate line of our efforts as well.
Well, that's great. Clean water is very important, and yeah, it sounds like you guys are trying to be responsibly profitable, which is always good. Well, I really appreciate you guys coming in. We will have this, this is recorded. So if anybody isn't able to listen to this live, I hope they're able to listen to it recorded, and we'll certainly have that tweeted out where they can listen to that later so they can learn as much as possible about Sidney Resources. But thank you so much for coming on in here today.
Dan and Sean, thanks so much for coming on. We'd love to have you back on, maybe later this year when some of these catalysts are achieved and we can recap on how we got there. It's incredible, Dan, where you've come with this company in the last 12 years. And, I'm really bullish on the outlook of the company after hearing, the future endeavors you guys have coming. So thank you guys so much. And we look forward to following you and, seeing where you guys go from here.
Well, thank you. And we're happy to come back.
Excellent. I will look forward to that sincerely. All right, guys. Well, that is it for this week. We will be back on Monday at 17:30 UTC. It's 18:30 right now. So just to give you an idea, if you're not familiar with UTC time, but I try to use that universal time so that we can fight that time zone issue. But yeah, we'll be back on Monday at 17:30. And again, we will discuss the markets, whether it be crypto, NFT, or the OTC and stock markets. But until then, I'm Steven, the voice of DeFi. Make sure you give TRADERVERSE a follow. It's the account I'm speaking from. It is a soon-to-be-released social media platform that is developed by traders for you, the trader. So if you're trying to learn from a community of traders, TRADERVERSE will be the place to be. So make sure you follow the account that I am speaking from right now so you can be up to date on the latest comings and goings on TRADERVERSE. So until next time, I will see you guys on Monday. Thank you for Hawk for coming up here and helping to co-host. And until next time, I love all of you. Peace.